pull up tight, go in with your scissors, crop off. Two last things to do now before the ant's complete. One is to crop off the wing to length. So hold the two wings together. Remember, it's a flying ant, the wings are quite long. Certainly they extend beyond the end of the abdomen. And then I suppose you'll want to shape them, which is not necessary because fish don't give a damn. But like me, you'll want to go around and just take the corners off and make it look pretty. So there's your little queen ant, black garden ant. And then the last thing of all, touch of the old head cement. Use this thin runny stuff, this fly tight, this non-toxic. Go in, little droplet there, just at the back of the bonds, the back of the head. See it suck in with capillary action. If you want to do one last thing, which I sometimes do, is just take your scissors and just take a little V out of the bottom, as I do with a lot of my dry flies, just so that it'll sit nice and level. Just sit that on my hand, and there's your flying ant. Half an hour's time, you could have that on your leader and into a fish, and they eat them. No mistake about that. Right, the next fly is going to be a hopper, my version of the famous reservoir hopper. This fly achieved great notoriety probably in the mid to late 80s. I may be wrong, but I think it's about the late 80s. And it became more or less, if you didn't have a hopper on your leader, you weren't going to catch a fish. We know reservoir patterns come in fads and phases, but this one's continued. It's still a great fly. Its famous colours, or its most popular colours, are claret, black and amber. But there's all sorts of variations, and if you look in pattern books you can see 6 or 7 variations. Usually they embody a pearly rib. The one I'm going to do is a variant of the black one. I call it the Bibio hopper because it's got the little red spot on it. I like it for copying heather flies. It's a great pattern, but it does have, in my opinion, one Achilles heel, and that is the pheasant tail legs are prone to be either chewed off or wear off. So I've done a version with rubber legs. If you use rubber legs, they're on for good. They're not going to get chewed off by a toothy trout. Also, you get a lot of movement from them. So we'll make a start. For this pattern, I'm using this hook. It's called the Dry. It's one of the new Partridge range of flash pointed jobs, and it's a 10. The popular sizes for stillwater hoppers are 10, 12s and 14s. So I'm going to do this on a 10 for a medium sized wave, I suppose. So just nip down the barb. They've got little micro barbs on of these, so, and now on with the thread. I'm using black Moser Power Silk. Just take it round the shank like that, then wind forward and come back on myself, so I've no waste and no scissors as per usual. Thread on. Now the first thing is to tie the rubber legs on facing over the eye to start with. So these, I've chosen this colour. This is a sort of a ruddy dark brown, and it more or less approximates the colour of a pheasant tail. And I'm taking off, I'm counting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7. If you've got 7 it doesn't really matter. If you've got 5, I don't suppose it matters. Right, tie these in, give yourself a little bit of length. Tie these in. So just whack them in. And you can see how mobile this stuff is. If you want to tame them, do a cross-hand wrap by holding them forward. Right. And tie down. When you get to about there, you're in tight enough, knock that off. Now you're ready for the ribbing material, and I'm using this it's sort of a ready silver pearly. It's one of the new pearlies. It's like I don't know what you call it, but it's like got like a red cast to it. So take off a length of pearly. You can use silver holographic, it's just as good. Offer that in. And now tie that in and come right along the shank all the way to the bend. Check that it's in firm. First thing to go on now is some black dubbing, and I'm using this SLF. So a little pinch of black dubbing, and the best way to apply SLF I've found is to just knock it onto the thread, just touch it on, and then spread it with your thumbnail. I just spread it along with my thumbnail in sort of a loose spindle, loose rowlag. Watch for any pills. If it tends to bunch up on you and make little pills, just support with your fingertip. Just shred it out. Then once you've got a nice long spindle, I just moisten my finger and thumb, wipe them on my trousers, work a bit of friction up, and then you can tighten it straight in. And there's a nice tight spindle of black SLF. Now come up the shank, mind you don't pick a leg up, you might just have to keep easing those forward out of the way. And come forward, about half shank will do you. Slough off any excess. And now some red SLF. And you want a little, sort of a little collar of red SLF. And just spread it along. If you put SLF in, if you have trouble with it, just knock it along with support with your finger, and with your thumbnail just shred it out like that. It will cling to the thread, you don't need wax. When you open it out into a nice rowlag like that, what I do, wet my finger and thumb, get a bit of friction on my fingers, and then look at this, nip straight in, just roll it and it rolls straight in. And now come round and wind on to make a nice little red blob, if you like. If it opens out, just go back, scarf it back in again. And make a little red shoulder like that. And what you must have now at this stage, from the front of the dubbing to where the legs are springing out, you want to have about 2 to 3 millimeters, enough room to get your hackle on, turn your legs back, tie them in and form a head. Come over with your pearly and keep your rib in a fairly open spiral. Don't get your ribs too close together, move them along. Get a nice helix angle going and come through both colours with your pearly rib. To your thread, thread over it, legs out of the way, get off and tie down. And again, all the time you're tying off, keep your pearly quite tight, and then you can put a few more consolidating wraps on. Lift your rib up. If you want to make a double overlock, you can do, just hold your rib back and lock over it. Now it definitely won't come undone. Snip off. Next thing to do now is to just scrub up the body. This is my Velcro tease. It's just a lollipop stick with some Velcro glued on the end. I get my Velcro teaser and I just Velcro that up. Raise the fibres, go all round it, just lifting the fibres up. Tease them back. And then on with your hackle. This is a very good quality. It's half a cape. It's black genetic and I'm looking for the right length. Now, hackle length on a hopper is a personal thing. Some people like a fairly short hackle. Some people like them a little bit longer and some like them really bushy. It is a personal thing. It's up to you. I tend to like medium-sized hackles, so this one's not bad. When I say medium-sized, I'm talking about the barb length, the barbule length. The size that would give you a certain diameter when you wind it on. So strip off the lower fibres. Take the thread, make sure the thread's hard up to the end of that red dubbing. Set your hackle across on its edge with the good side towards the head of the fly and tie down. And now bring the butt across like that and tie that down and come to the front on this side. So I've figure of eighted the hackle. And now bend the stem down and catch it down. And that's the hackle in really tight. And then you might even be able to snip that off with a tweak. Now this hackle is long enough for me to handle. I don't need to hook my hackle pliers in. So now simply come round and make a nice neat shoulder hackle. About 3 or 4 turns. When I get to there, come off. Drop the thread over. Keep the hackle tight and tie off. Tie off, tie off, tie off, tie off. And again. Snip off the waist. You might have a few fibres sticking forward, just stroke those back and do the usual tidying up at the front. So any fibres that are sticking forward, just sweep them back. There's odd and there which I'll just take out with my scissors. I'm not usually as neat myself. Looking good so far. Now to put the legs in the right position, because I've made them facing out over the eye, tied them in that way, I can now trap these in any position I want by just bringing them back and taking a turn of thread over. So you can now position these, literally you can position these where you want them. That's the beauty of working with rubber. So I'll put one there, one on that side, get it to grab hold, one on this side, and then the others, I'll rotate my jaws and I'll swing these down to the underside and trap them in on the underside. Where's that one want to go? I'll put that one in on the underside as well. So you can play about to your heart's content and get these in where you want them. I have a bit of work to do with the cauterizer too, to shape them up. Once you're happy that you've got them where you want them, just secure them with a few more wraps. And I'm just looking at it now, and they don't look bad. And now just produce the head and a whip finish. Pull tight and snip off. Now I take it out, and what I'll do is I'll hang it that way so the legs drape backwards and go around and just shorten them to length. Again, if you tie rubbering that's a bit too long, it gives you the choice of making the legs quite long or shorten them back as I'm doing. Right, now to put the little joints in, make sure your battery in here is almost dead, otherwise you'll have a load of amputees here. So hang it so that the back end of the leg will drop under its own weight, and can just rest the leg where you want the joint to be. You can just rest the rubber on, press it and let it collapse. That's that one done. And that one. And that one. I like them to have a good kink in them. It's got to be very almost finished as a battery. And what you're doing is you're letting the weight of the rubber collapse like a felled tree. And it gives you the chance of you deciding where you want the joint. So they're all nicely kinked. And so I'll sit that back and just put some head cement on. And these, when you're retrieving the fly, and it's just, I fish it traditional lock style. I like it in a decent wave. When the top dropper, the bob fly, is just breaking through the surface film, and you're just bringing it up towards the boat, these will be just wobbling in the surface film, and it's a great attractor. So, head cement on, and we'll call that done. Make sure the eye's not bunged up. So there we are, another one for the box. It's quite a versatile fly. You can oil it up and fish it purely as a dry fly. I've done that in a semi-flat calm and caught fish. I've got quite a few of these now. I'm going to probably finish up with a dozen or more, and I'll do some in clarets and blacks and cinnamon colour, and use the same colour rubber legs throughout, and I should be well set for this year on still waters.